he liked working for Pinkerton. He liked the Pinkerton name. And he got to go different places and work in different areas. So one night, and I would always visit Daddy if I could, or bring him some food, or I'd find out where he was, and I'd take someone with me and we'd go see him. But mostly it was just me and Dad. I was pretty close to Dad. So one night, Daddy was working at Fashion Square in Santa Ana, and it was about 11 o'clock at night. And the mall pretty much closed up early, 8:30, 9. So it was just Daddy and maybe some lovers walking around or something. So I get there, and Fashion Square was a precious little mall. It was just an outside thing with small stores and these pretty trees that had Christmas lights, those white lights. Well, they weren't Christmas, but ambiance lights. And it was about 11. So I go, "Hi, Daddy." And he goes, "Oh, hi, sweetheart." And he was so glad for the company. So he goes, "Can you stay with me for a little while?" I go, "Yeah, Daddy, yeah." So we're walking around, and we get to a leather store, and Daddy was very proud of his education from Uncle John about tailoring and stitching and material. And he put his arm around me and he goes, You see that suitcase over there?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Look closely. That's hand stitched, probably in Italy." And I'd look, I go, "Yeah, Daddy, it says in Italy." He said, "Yeah, that's a fine product." And he goes, see that bookcase over there?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, see it's got this and this." And he's talking and he's teaching me, and he's very quiet. And I mean, the whole night was quiet. It was one of these nights that it was cool and quiet and no breeze, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And we walk around a little more, and then we get to Wet Seal. I go, "Oh, Daddy, look, do you like that dress?" And he'd say, "Yeah, do you like it?" And I go, "Yeah, I like it." Now, the thing about Dad is he never said, "Ooh, you see that?" And you go, "Yeah," and he'd say, "Well, that sucks." He never did that. He never, ever, ever did that. He encouraged. He'd always say, "Do you like it?" And I would say, "Yeah." And he'd say, "Well, what do you think about that plaid skirt over there? I think that would look good on you." I go, "Oh, I don't like that. That sucks." Not, I didn't say that, but, as a typical teen. But he was a gentle man. And then we'd go to the next store, and we'd window shop, and we'd look, and it was lit up in the back, and it was just a beautiful evening. So then we're headed toward where my car was, and there was a See's candy shop, and it had a light on in the back, and it just looked very inviting. So we're looking in there, and I think Daddy had, for dinner. Nobody cared about Dad really at that point. He had like a breakfast square and maybe a thermos of coffee or instant breakfast. I don't know. But I didn't bring him anything to eat that night. Wish I had. But anyway, we're looking at See's candy. And Daddy says, "Hey, what's your favorite?" And I said, "Well, I really like those Bordeaux's and that chocolate thing over there. And, oh, look at over there." And I'm talking, and I go, and he's telling me about the nuts and the dark chocolate. And then he sees the one he really likes. And it's this stick with this square caramel thing on it. It's this sucky thing. I like 35 cents. And he says, "That's the one I like. I really, really like that. Do you like those?" I go, "Yeah, Daddy, yeah, those are pretty good." He says, "I really like them. I really like them." And we stood there and stared at it for a few minutes like it was going to come out or something. And we backed off, and he said, "Okay, sweetheart, you better go home. It's time for you to go home because I have to go clock in, and it's almost midnight now. You need to go home, and thank you for visiting me, and, hug, kiss, I love you." Okay. But if I could get him that damn caramel sucky thing for 35 cents, I'd go back in time, and So the next position Daddy had in this company with Pinkerton was security guard at Fashion Island. And this particular night, he was working third shift, and he was working in the parking lot on the bottom of the building. It was a tall building. I don't know how big the buildings were at Fashion Island. I don't remember. So it was just him in the basement with the cars, and there was a man on the top floor filling the Coke machine. And there was an earthquake. This is 1971, and it was the Sylmar earthquake, so it was a biggie. Daddy came home 7 in the morning, because like I said, it was third shift. And he was pretty shaken up. I mean, he was really shaken up by that job, by that night, by that earthquake. He decided he didn't want to be a security guard anymore. It was too much. The third shift, being away from his family. You know, Daddy would come home at 7 in the morning and he'd say, okay, everybody has to be quiet. And we didn't. Well, we were for a little bit, but we didn't. So that lasted. Daddy had that job for maybe a month. Now, Jack in the Box. So Daddy got a day job. After all this time, he finally got a day job, and it was managing Jack in the Box on Harbor Boulevard in Huntington Beach. Does Harbor run through Huntington? I don't remember. Anyway, it was toward the beach. We all know where it was. Everybody helped him. Now, Daddy, this job was, again, it was too much for Dad. So we all helped him. I was working there full time with him, and Daddy could do the payroll. He could do the scheduling. He could do the counting, because you had to count everything. Every spoon, every fork, every cup. You had to count. And Daddy did that very well. But Daddy had to also answer the Jack in the Box head, take the orders, and flip the hamburgers. This is a fry order thing. This is a quick, what do they call those, fry order cooks? He wasn't good at it. It was killing him. We could get one hamburger out, and it was a perfect hamburger. That's not how you do it. So it was really hard on Dad. Really hard on Dad. He was working 24 hours a day. He was on call. He was working every weekend. It was a terrible job for Daddy. And he wanted it to be good because he was a good manager. He was good with people. He was wonderful to work with, but this wasn't the job for him. Finally, he was really tired of working weekends. He wanted some time off. So he hired a guy, a young man, good-looking young man. Hi, baby. That had a prison record. And, you know, Daddy was always good with people, always wanting to give people a second chance. He believed in redemption and forgiveness his whole life. So he hired this guy. Guy was pretty good. He went right up to management, you know, under Daddy, and ripped him off, took everything. Everything. All the money, all the food, everything. Everything. About that time, Daddy got a call from Rockwell. Thank you, God. And Daddy went back to Rockwell. And it was good. He was still stressed out. I think that whole time, the whole time we were there, he was stressed out. But he got a call back from Rockwell. Then he got laid off. Then he got a job at Ford Aerospace, right on Jamboree. I think it was up above Fashion Island, just right up above Balboa. And he worked there for a year or two until he got laid off and then went back to Rockwell. So in 1978, 79, Daddy got a call from heaven, and it was for a procurement supervisor on this thing called the Space Shuttle in Florida. And it was going to be good. So Daddy said to me, hey, you want to go for a drive? I said, sure. Where are we going? Los Angeles, San Gabriel. Where are we going, Daddy? He said, we're going to Florida. Florida. Ooh, I remember Panama City. Those are the best times. Florida, really? I said, yeah. Mom and I got a house on Merritt Island. Oh, even better. Merritt Island, Balboa Island. This is good. So I said, give me 2 weeks. I quit my job. I had a job in Santa Ana at Children's Hospital. It was a good job. And I was self-sufficient, so I had my own car and I had my own money for a hotel, and we left. Mom stayed behind to sell the house, and we left. And Daddy and I hit it for Florida. And I'll pick that up later, but I wanted to tell you guys, all of you, the strength that Daddy had in providing for his family. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, all that other stuff with Dad, all that other stuff that Wendy thought and Wendy said. Her dad was brave, and our dad was very brave. Okay, everybody.